Welcome to the Unlist. Today I want to talk about store brands, aka brands made by or for retailers of fragrance. You don't see them all that often anymore. I mean, once upon a time, they were probably a bit more prevalent when it was easier to walk into, say, a big box retailer and go to their health and beauty aisle, and there were always a selection of fragrances that you would find only at that retailer. So I remember in particular that you would see a lot of Parfums de Coeur products sold at Walmart. And even though that's strictly not a store brand, it is a brand that primarily sold at Walmart. So there was a partnership there with Parfums de Coeur and Walmart. Same thing with Body Fantasies, which is the same company as Parfums de Coeur. And of course Bodman, which is also, it's all the same company. So I kind of call that a store brand because you don't see that at Macy's, you don't see that at JCPenney, you don't see that at Kohl's and stores like that. It was primarily a Walmart thing, although I don't want to say that it was exclusively there, but those were more or less store brand perfumes. And these days, you also see products like Cremo turning up in grocery stores and other big box retailers. Kroger seems to do a lot of Cremo stuff. So yeah, store brands. I want to talk about those. Target also has a line of fragrances that they are now selling. And I think even Old Navy has jumped on the store brand bandwagon too as of late. Although their stuff could also be called mall scents, which I've done a video about mall scents already. Brands like Abercrombie & Fitch and Aeropostale, Express, Victoria's Secret, all those guys launching perfumes, Lucky Jeans. But I kind of see a bit of separation between store brands and the mall scents because the mall boutiques don't sell a range of products. They sell their clothes, their shoes, their stuff, and their fragrances are branded with the boutique name. So it's like designer adjacent, just exclusive to the mall, right? You don't see them in department stores like Macy's, again, Nordstrom, JCPenney, they don't turn up there. But store brands, on the other hand, are sold in stores that also sell food and home goods and pharmacy and blah, blah, blah. Also, fragrance retailers that have their own standalone stores or online presence. So this includes FragranceNet. They don't have a brick and mortar side though, but FragranceNet. What's another one? Not Perfumania. Yeah, Perfumania, which did have brick and mortar stores. I don't know if they still do, but Perfumania was one. Pure Perfume Galleria is another one. And they typically carry as their store brands stuff from the Middle East. A lot of times they have deals with Rayanne Tradition. They have deals with Armaf a lot of times. I know the Perfume Galleria in the local mall near here, which South Center Mall in Tukwila, they do a lot of Armaf and Al Haramain stuff. It's always on the counters. When you walk into Perfume Galleria, it's a good shop. I bought stuff from the lady who runs it. She's really nice. This is not giving them smoke. This is not a diss. I like the shop. I've bought plenty of stuff there, but I do notice when you go into Perfume Galleria, the first thing that they tend to do, not to me because she knows me by now, but to random customers, the first thing they do is shove a bottle of Club de Nuit in their face, shove a bottle of Très Bon or Très Nuit or one of those. Here, try this, it's on sale, it's good. And, you know, maybe they get a spiff for that or whatever, which is like a little extra profit margin per unit sold, I don't know. But yeah, store brands. Store brands are not always named after the store. Big surprise there though, right? If you were FragranceNet and you had a FragranceNet branded perfume, How many people are going to roll the dice on that, say, yeah, let's get that bottle of Fragrance Net Pour Homme. Let's get that bottle of Max Aroma, right, Eau de Toilette. That's just not going to happen, right? People aren't going to do that. It's almost like when you go into a grocery store, most of the store brand food they sell there has some other name to it. It's Signature, Select, it's something along those lines. Very seldom do you go into a grocery store and it's just named after the grocery store. Sometimes Safeway does their Safeway Select still. And those of you older people like myself that remember when A&P was a going concern, right? Their long history, ancient history. But when we had A&P grocery stores, they did A&P products that were just A&P. The mayonnaise, the ketchup, the cereal, whatever. So it happens. Walmart had their Sam's Choice. Now it's Great Value, but it's not just named Walmart. So at least with the store brand perfume, you're not going to call it that. Now this one may surprise you, but Ed Hardy was a store brand for a long time. Those of you are going to be like, what stores sell them? I don't recall seeing Ed Hardy boutiques. And I'm like, no, because if it was sold at Ed Hardy boutique, it would be a mall scent. It would have been in my mall scent video. There were Ed Hardy boutiques at one point that sold the clothes and the skateboards and blah, 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 tattoo culture, adjacent designer brand. Kind of a big flash in the pan for them now. But no, for a while, you would see Ed Hardy stuff in Hot Topic, right? Hot Topic eventually launched their own perfumes. Okay, they did. But Ed Hardy, at least in the United States, as far as fragrance is concerned, Ed Hardy really got their foot in the door with Hot Topic because the bottles were edgy, covered in the Ed Hardy tattoo designs. They had bottles literally shaped like skulls, literally shaped like coffins, literally shaped like all kinds of crazy stuff. The bottles had long tubular caps with the tattoo sleeve decorating it. And if you're already in Hot Topic, right, because you're already shopping for the latest My Chemical Romance CD, or you're looking for the latest Fall Out Boy shirt, or you're a Slipknot kid and you're trying to get your favorite mask, maybe you want Clown's mask, maybe you wanted Corey's mask, whatever. But it would be not too far beyond the realm of reason to be like, hey, here is the edgy looking gothic kind of, skater culture adjacent tattoo covered bottle of perfume. And that's what you got with the Ed Hardy stuff. And I owned 4 of them at one point. I did a live stream, actually, about Ed Hardy a very long time ago. And that live stream still exists on my Instagram. You can go watch it. When I owned those fragrances, I talked about the 4 that I had. I let them go several years ago. I will explain my reasons for that. But this video is just generally talking about my experience with store brands. Are they good? Are they bad? Blah, 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 blah. I'm just going to be honest. Since they're not always exclusively made by the store in question, sometimes they're just a licensing thing, a partnership thing. The store brands can vary in quality. The ones that are like custom tailor-made for the stores, for example, like the ones made for Old Navy, they can be surprisingly cheap and cheerful, but they're usually never great. They're never great. Greatness is capped. You're never going to find a hidden gem. And I don't want to be pessimistic because I'm someone who likes value. Obviously, I like Armand fragrances. I like Avon fragrances. I've smelled some Natura's, Yves Rocher, Aura Flames. You can get a lot of good stuff in that segment, right? People really do a disservice by saying that those things are garbage. They just judge with their eyes and with their pocketbook. They don't judge with their nose. But having smelled enough of them, most of them are just, they are good at best. just good at best. And for the amount of money you pay, you may be tempted. Okay, that's the thing. You may be tempted for the amount of money you pay. Okay, it's only 15 bucks. It's only 20 bucks. But if you're someone who's been collecting for a while, reviewing for a while, you've been sampling around, you know that even in that price point range, even in that $15, $20, $25 price point range, you can do so much better than a lot of these store brands. Like, I can get you Avon fragrances that will blow you away for the same amount of money you'd spend on a Parfums de Coeur or a Bod or any of those. So the Cremo stuff, whatever. It's just not typically. It's one of those things where I'm like, you can smell it, but before you just buy it, go do some diligence, because they're not going to be here today, gone tomorrow. I mean, Zara fragrances, which also would qualify as mall scents, because Zara is primarily a clothing store in the mall. But the Zara stuff is on a rotating carousel. It's in, it's out, it's in, it's out. But so with those, you blink, you miss it. But most of the bigger box retailers, like the Walmarts, like the Targets, that, like I said, that carry the store brands, the in-house brands, the exclusively sold at brands, even the fragrance net stuff, right? There are a couple brands that exclusively sell through fragrance net. Even then, that stuff is under contract and made in bulk and literally languishes for years. So you can smell it and go, okay, and go do some diligence, go research, figure out what it's close to. Is there something better? Before you bite the bullet and pay that money on that. And the reason why I say this, anyone who's ever shopped at FragranceNet has probably gotten a sample of exceptional because you are, right? I think everyone knows that one, exceptional because you are, whether it's the women's one in the pink card or the men's one in the black card. You've probably gotten at least one sample. I make a joke with that, and I say that if you order from FragranceNet enough times, like 10, 15 times, so a couple of years worth of business, you can eventually accumulate enough of that fragrance to fill a 100 ml bottle of it. So they've effectively given you a bottle. You can have a full bottle of exceptional because you are. You just got to buy enough stuff from FragranceNet. Eventually you get that bottle without actually buying the bottle. Just keep all your little carded samples. Build it up. They're all like 5 ml a piece or whatever, so you need like 20 of them. And eventually you have a 100 ml bottle right there of exceptional because you are. That fragrance is not bad. It's a bit of a milquetoast kind of Millésime Impérial by Creed kind of a thing. I mean, it's not exactly the same as Millésime Impérial, but it's in the wheelhouse of that. But it's milquetoast in my opinion. I mean, there are better things. If you like that scent profile that Kalone, watermelon ketone, citruses, ambroxan kind of a dry down, you like that fresh sort of thing, you can get Armaf, Milestone, you can get actually an Ed Hardy fragrance. You can get Love and Luck by Ed Hardy for men. It's very similar to that. You can get the Sean John Unforgivable, although with P. Diddy's recent legal troubles with all of his parties and such and the baby oil, I'm not going to get into that, but you may not want to associate with the Sean John brand. I understand why you wouldn't want to have that in your collection. So if you want to skip that one, skip the Unforgivable, there's still the other options out there. You don't really need to go down the exceptional because you are route. The women's one is also kind of milquetoast too. It doesn't directly copy anything. I mean, maybe Coco Mademoiselle by Chanel, sorta. You know, it gets in that pink peony melon wheelhouse, but it's not exactly one-to-one copy of anything. But that's like, to me, the epitome of store brands is going to be that exceptional because you are. And the other one would also be those Ed Hardys. Now, let me talk a little bit about those, why those came and went from my collection. So, when I bought all the Ed Hardy stuff, their deal with Hot Topic had obviously ended. And they were originally made and distributed by South Beach Concepts. That was the brand. Or maybe it was Riviera Concepts. There's two. I can't remember which one it was. There's South Beach Concepts, Riviera Concepts. They're made by one of these like small LLC companies, okay? So it's very small LLC IP owner that I guess reached out to Javaldin or one of those. And to me, the Ed Hardys all felt like they were unused mods for designer briefs that were rejected by the client, which is a very similar thing you see with a lot of these real fly-by-night brands that come out of nowhere. Whether it's $30 or $300, doesn't matter what price point we're at here, guys. This is just truth. A lot of these brands that come out of nowhere and they launch with like 15 fragrances all at once, like blah, all these fragrances. They didn't sit there and commission each one of those. They didn't sit there and consult with a perfumer. These are houses where it's usually a private investor, some investment capital firm, vulture capitalism, if you want to call it that. They get it in their head. They're going to do a quick turnover. They're going to pump this brand up and then flip it and then walk away, richer, whatever. So they just go about acquiring these mods, these rejected mods. Then they dress them up with a pretty pink bow, put them in a bottle, and boom, you get all of these, nice niche fragrances or value fragrances, whatever market they choose to enter. It's pennies on the dollar for them, and the turnover is usually pretty good within the first year or so, that if there's stock left over, it doesn't sell, they don't care. Let it go to liquidators. Let it get discontinued. They're only interested in making that quick money in that first year. It's literally a pump and dump scheme, guys. Okay, it's a pump and dump scheme. Like a lot of these electric car companies that start off, build a prototype, and then go bankrupt because all the investment capital that went into the hands of the initial guy that started up, he runs away happy with the money, and the whole thing bails out. And then usually, if you play your cards right, he gets arrested. Like the guy that did Nikola Motors, he got locked up for fraud, but most of them don't get caught. Most of them don't get caught. And the same thing with the perfumes, man. That is what Navitus was. All those influencers that signed up for Navitus, they got wrung out, basically. It's the same thing with like Electimus. A lot of those were mods of unused projects. The Harmonist is another one that feels just like that. Mind Games is another one that feels just like that. All of these brands that come out of nowhere that have all these fragrances ready to go, and they all smell very similar to something else, very close to something else. One thing different, one thing changed. Again, whether they're $30 or $300, it doesn't matter. They are, a lot of times, it is the same thing. And Ed Hardy was kind of like that. Came out of nowhere in the mid-2000s, signed a deal with Hot Topic. Hot Topic sold them. They had the cool little edgy goth bottles, the little Donnie Darko. My favorite band is The Cure or whatever kind of deal. Where I listen to My Chemical Romance. Here's my hair hanging in front of my face. Like that. So when I got around to them, they were done with that. And very recently, the owner of that company had launched another brand. I think it's called Christian something else. God, there was it's an L word, but it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant right now. Point is, that guy made his money, and the original LLC company flipped their rights to Elizabeth Arden. So when I was picking them up, they were done with Hot Topic. They had expanded to more general retail. So they had moved beyond the store brands. See, some store brands can transcend the store brand nomenclature and just become general brands. It can happen. And for a while, Ed Hardy did escape that. They did escape that ecosphere, if you will. They got out of that. And when I was buying them, they were being sold everywhere, I guess you could say. They were turning up. Most of my bottles came from Sears, because somehow Sears, during their last declining years before they all disappeared from the face of the earth, Sears was getting giant truckloads of Ed Hardy fragrances. I don't know why, but Sears was not doing so great in the 2010s anyway, but they were getting truckloads of Ed Hardy fragrances, and they were putting them on little end tables, and those end tables were kind of all around the store. So while you were shopping at Land's End or whatever, or just looking at the jewelry, because they were always upstairs with the clothes, you'd walk past, and where they'd keep their little selection of fragrances, it wasn't much. Sears was never a place to go for perfume. For those of you who are not old enough to remember, you never shopped at Sears, they weren't really a place to go to for perfume, but they'd have a little something. They'd have a little corner or a single shelf or some under glass, usually next to the jewelry or next to the watches, near the scarves and the gloves and the sunglasses. Where you would keep accessories is where Sears would keep their perfume. And nothing was ever locked up, usually, because they never had anything that was really big enough. So they never really had anything that was big enough to actually secure it, right? They didn't need to do that. So at the end of the day, I got them, and they were like $15 a piece. I'm not sure what they were being sold for at Hot Topic, because I wasn't a Hot Topic shopper. I was that hardcore metalhead who was too true cult, right? The metalheads say that now. I was too true cult to shop at Hot Topic. I was getting all of my band shirts at shows. Okay, I was going to little record stores in the city where I'd get my latest thrash, death, black metal record, imported from Norway or whatever. That's where I was getting my stuff from, because I was too cool for the Hot Topic. But when I was collecting perfume, like really earnestly buying bottles, moving beyond my Avon, moving beyond my drugstore stuff, I saw those at Sears, and they were colorful, and they were cheerful, and they were cheap. So I said, okay, what the fuck, why not? So I started buying them up, and, well, Olivier Guillotin did most of them. And he's an interesting perfumer. He does not get credited enough for the stuff he's done. He was one of two perfumers who worked on White Diamonds by Elizabeth Taylor. Carlos Bename was the other. He's also the architect of all the early Tom Ford fragrances. So if you like Tom Ford, stuff like Tobacco Vanille and all that, he was there for that. He was like the architect of that. So I think he also did Oud Wood, but don't quote me on that. It could be someone else. But Olivier Guillotin is no joke. He has done a lot of good stuff, but he typically doesn't get talked about in the same ways Alberto Morillas does, or Pierre Bourdon, or this other big name, Jacques Cavalier. Olivier Guillotin is just kind of like a B-side, kind of perfumer. But he did all these Ed Hardys. And they all smell really creative, but they all have like one thing wrong with them, which is why they were probably rejected and why they ended up as Ed Hardy fragrances. The women's stuff I don't know anything about, never smelled them. But the men's that I had the original one just called Ed Hardy with the tiger on it. And that one kind of reminded me of like a 1 million adjacent kind of fragrance, but take out the big Tonka and make it more about amber. So imagine if 1 million was about amber instead of Tonka. So it was closer in tone to the one for gentlemen. So take like the one by Dolce & Gabbana. Take the one and then 1 million and smash them together. So you get the orange in the opening, the real big, bright, sweet orange, and then you get a little bit of some tobacco vibes. But then when you get into the base, it's all amber instead of Tonka, and it's not as ooey gooey. It's also a little less floral. 1 million is actually more floral than most folks don't realize how floral 1 million actually is, because they're so focused on the sweetness and so focused on the Tonka that they don't realize there's a lot of florals going on in that. It's a little bit of a bait and switch there. But yeah, it was okay. The Ed Hardy original was all right. The Love and Luck was, again, like I said earlier, it was more like a Milsim Imperial kind of a thing. Not exactly the same. It wasn't a clone. And in my review of it, you'll read, if you go back to base notes, I tell you it's not a clone. It's definitely in the wheelhouse, but it has some very decisive alternate choices that take it strictly away from the MI DNA. It doesn't really do melon the way MI does melon. There's no real melon in that. So it's more of a white floral citrus with some echoes of Milsim Imperial, which could be close enough for some people to make do. That one was my favorite. Of all the Ed Hardys, that one was my favorite. Then you had Hearts and Daggers, which was like the one cylindrical, flat, oblong bottle. That one I didn't really care for because it was like they were trying to take an aquatic, like a Cool Water or a Polo Blue or something like that, like a classical blue aquatic from the 90s, early aughts. They were taking that and putting a weird olive martini accord right in the middle of it. So imagine you're wearing Cool Water, imagine you're wearing Polo Blue, but you're drinking a dirty olive martini, which conceptually sounds like it'd be good, but when you wear it on your skin for 8 hours, it gets very nagging. The salt and the brine and the olive does not mix well with the aquatic accord, so it ends up not being as pleasant as you might think. And I wore that like a half dozen times, and eventually I had to trot that one off to the afterlife too. And then last but not least, Born Wild. Born Wild had a cult following for a while because people said it smelled like Viking by Creed. They could not be more wrong on that. And I will die on this hill. Born Wild does not smell like a predecessor to Creed Viking. Not even remotely close. Okay, maybe they both have pepper notes. Okay, maybe they both have a little bit of mint in them. But other than that, never the twain shall meet. The big thing about Born Wild is it has a Palo Santo note in it, which makes it a bit unique. It's a real dry, woody, almost like a churchy sort of smell, or like a red sandalwood, Chinese, like Buddhist temple kind of smell. It's got that going on. But then it just buries it in pink pepper, guys. It just goes, oh, cool. We've got some neat stuff going on here. Here's some Palo Santo. Here's some mint. Here is some other stuff, right? Let's some black pepper. Now let's just go pink pepper, pink pepper, pink pepper, pink pepper. Like triple, quadruple, double down, you know, like the KFC double down sandwich with 2 chicken patties and cheese in the middle. Let's just throw the pink pepper on it. And then you're just like, okay, man, this is just too much pink pepper. I can't really abide this. And that's where you end up with Born Wild. So if a big glob of pink pepper smells like Creed Viking to you, then go ahead, but not to me. And it just brings me back to my point, man. The store brands all kind of smell like they're trying to do something, but they're either trying to be just a little outside of their limit, like a singer that's going out of their range. You know, your name is Bob Singer, you're not going to hit that Dimash D5. You're just not. Or D7 or whatever it is, okay? You're Rob Halford, you've got a great voice, but you're not doing the Mariah Carey whistle notes. Let's be honest here. You're not doing it, okay? You're not doing that Loving You song from like the 70s. I forget the singer of that, but you know, she's got that real super high up there too. It's like, again, it's like a singer just going outside of their range. It's like a guitar player who's trying to pull off that sweet picking, trying to pull off that real crazy run. He's doing the Phrygian mode, but guess what? He's not Uli John Roth, so he can't quite do the Phrygian mode the way he wants to. He needs to practice just a little more before he can nail it, but he's doing it anyway, so he messes up and hits like, you know, slightly sharp or slightly, you know, bent a little too wrong way, and it just kind of goes like that. It doesn't sound right. That is kind of what a lot of these store brands do. is they just go slightly beyond their budgetary constraint. They go slightly beyond their ability. Or it's the other thing. Where they're just middling. And they are so perfectly, exactly middling that even at a discount price, they are just too average. Too damn average. And that's how I feel about a lot of the stuff that turns up at places like Old Navy or where they have these fragrances where it's like lavender and kumquat. And you smell that, you're like, yeah, that's lavender and kumquat, all right. But what else? What else is going on? Okay, white musks. All right, great. What else? Some really bright metallic aldehyde choice. Okay. How much you want for this? $10? All right, that's not bad. But you're going to spend $10 on lavender and kumquat in a cheap little bottle with a paper label on it. You could spend $15 and have something leagues beyond it in smell. Again, going back to Avon or some of the things that you can get like from Lomani or whatnot. You don't really need that store brand lavender kumquat anymore, like that Cremo stuff. The Cremo stuff is great if you're going to use it as body wash, if you're going to use it for shaving. But you don't need those eau de toilettes, my dude. You don't. Because you can take a little more time, a little more effort, spend a few dollars more, and get something exponentially better. That's the key here. Exponentially better. Not just a little better. A little more money, a lot better. That's my opinion on store brands. If you disagree with me, let me know in the comment section. I'd love to hear about it. We can talk. But as always, I expect you to be civil, right? No slurs or weirdness. This is just perfume, guys. All right? We're not debating religion here. So catch you later. Have a good one.